add to your list of horribles of this Congress and this administration the Violence Against Women Act. Now, this is it's been out there. It was originally intended to help victims of domestic violence, sexual assault, and trafficking, but it has become hijacked by Democrats and every liberal, wacky idea that is out there. It's become a mule for all of these leftist priorities. And that's coming up for a vote in the House. Joining me now to talk about this is FRC's Director of Federal Affairs, Mary Beth Waddell. Mary Beth, welcome back to Washington Watch.
Glad to be here. Thanks, Tony.
Okay, so let's talk about Violence for Women Act. A vote is scheduled for tomorrow. Is that correct, in the House?
Exactly. Tomorrow afternoon.
All right. Tell our listeners what all this bill would do in its present form.
As you mentioned, VAWA itself was initially intended for great purposes, but unfortunately, the way this bill is drafted, it would further traumatize battered women. It would reduce resources for battered women. It would allow organizations that have been known to cover up abuse and sex trafficking to access these funds. It puts women who are incarcerated at risk of abuse. I mean, the bill itself, there are times where it has deleted the word women and put people or adults and youth.
So right now, this is, I mean, it's primarily driven by the Democrats, but there are some Republicans that are supporting it, I understand. And of course, a part of this is because of the deceptive nature of the titles and what its original intent were. How much support does this have among Republicans?
Well, right now there are only 2 co-sponsors, but that is one up from last year. And whenever this went through the House last year, or 2019, there were 33 Republicans who voted for it.
So what do people need to do to talk to their what do they need to know in order to talk to their congressman about this bill?
Well, they can go to our website and find our resources and find our alert into those 33 districts and to the freshman offices and let them know that they want VAWA to stand what VAWA is supposed to stand for, that it's supposed to be protecting these battered women who need a safe place to heal, both physically and emotionally.
Yeah, we were talking earlier with Senator Marsha Blackburn about the Equality Act, and there's elements of that even in here where this would affect women in these, you mentioned the battered women in these battered shelters. This bill in itself opens the door to men who claim to be women to go into those shelters, does it not?
Absolutely. And we've already seen the harms of allowing that. There was a shelter in California that allowed a biological man to reside in the shelter, and 9 women filed a lawsuit for sexual harassment and assault.
So the best thing to do, get the fact sheet. You go to TonyPerkins.com, follow the links over and get that, and contact your member of Congress and let them know that you have concerns about this, that you want to protect women, but this is not the vehicle to do it. Mary Beth, what else do we have coming down the line here? I mean, it just seems like every day there's some other radical idea that the Democratic majority is pushing. I mean, it's moving so fast it almost gives you whiplash looking back and forth. What's next in line?
Absolutely. Tomorrow alone, not just this vote on VAWA, but there's also the vote on the Equal Rights Amendment that is similar to VAWA, has a lot of these same implications, a lot of the same implications of the Equality Act, but has a great name, and is completely unconstitutional. There's already been a limit for that. And you also have on the Senate side on just tomorrow, just Wednesday, there will be a hearing on the Equality Act itself. And that's just one day this week.
Yeah, they are not wasting any time to try to push through their agenda items. And I was discussing this earlier with Senator Marsha Blackburn about the one thing that stands in the way is the filibuster, the 60-vote threshold that's needed. And, of course, there have been Democratic members that, want to do away with that. And I didn't get into this conversation with Senator Blackburn because we ran out of time. But just like the filibuster, the 60-vote threshold that had been in place for judges that the Democrats eliminated. When the Republicans regained the majority, they didn't change that back. They used it to their advantage. And I think back over the last 4 years, the number of pieces of legislation that the Republicans had that they couldn't advance because of the 60-vote threshold. I mean, the Democrats ought to think really hard before they change this rule because, I think given where they are taking America, there's going to be a strong pushback in the next election, and the Republicans could be in the majority and use the same rule change.
They certainly could. You know, as you mentioned, it's already happened before. This would really erode the foundation of the Senate as an institution, make it more partisan, and you'd have tit for tat every time control switches back and forth. So yeah, I would agree and hope that they would think long and hard before they would make these changes to the institution of the Senate.
Yeah. All right. Again, information for the Violence Against Women Act. You can go to TonyPerkins.com, follow links over. Also, here's the switchboard, Capitol switchboard, where you can call your member of Congress. It's 202-224-3121. That's 202-224-3121. Also, if you go to TonyPerkins.com, we have a short link there that you can contact your local representative, your member of Congress, so that you can communicate with them your concerns about this deceptively named Violence Against Women Act. It, again, initially had a good purpose, intent, but it's been hijacked, and it has all kinds of detrimental things in this bill. In fact, Mary Beth, one more thing before I let you go. And also, the Second Amendment supporters are really concerned about this legislation as well, are they not?
Yes, there are. There are provisions in VAWA that would strip Second Amendment rights away.
In not without due process. So it's
no due process at all.
Yeah, very, very concerning, very bad piece of legislation. Mary Beth Waddell, thanks so much for joining us today. Appreciate all the work you do for us on Capitol Hill.
Glad to be here. Thanks.